You're listening to the AZ Wildcats Podcast, brought to you by DraftKings. Great deal going on for new customers right now. You throw down $1 on your NFL team, and if they score, you get $100 in free plays. That simple, that easy. All right. Generally, when I am going through the intros and I'm looking at somebody's resume, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, what do you want to highlight? A guy like Justin Spears, what don't you highlight? Heisman voter. Writes for the local newspaper, also does the Spears and Ali from 3 to 6 on ESPN Tucson. By the way, check that out, download it, subscribe to it, everything on all your podcast platforms. And Justin Spears, follow him on Justin Esports. Hello, Justin. How are you doing, my man?
What's going on, brother? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Dude, doing well, hanging in there, bro. So first and foremost, I wanted to kind of do a season where we're catching up, just kind of on U of A sports and everything that's going on there. When you look at this, when you look at where we are just right now as opposed to last year at this time, there's definitely a different feel involved. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, last year at this time, I mean, Jed Fish was just hired. And he was less than a week into the jobs, were really skeptical about what he would do, and staff that he would put together, because he was kind of this nobody. All right, nobody expected Jed Fish to be the head coach. He wasn't on anybody's radar whatsoever when Arizona first started this coaching search to replace Kevin Sumlin. So when Jed Fish was hired, we were like, okay, the quarterback's coach from the New England Patriots, like, that's cool, but what is he going to do to turn Arizona around and get the program out of rock bottom? And every step along the way, Jed Fish has hit a home run, whether it was the staff that he assembled, whether it was the guys that he got on the recruiting trail. The fact that Arizona finished the football season 1-11 and they have a top 25 recruiting class really shows how much hope in the vision that Jed Fish is selling to these recruits. And then, a lot of people were wondering what was going to happen with Sean Miller, because Arizona was in the middle of the basketball season and they were in the middle of this investigation. They still need to figure out the resolution from that process. But a lot of people, including myself, always wondered, is this Sean Miller's last year? Because he's got one more year left on the contract, and you figure if Arizona was going to keep Sean Miller, they would a contract extension, but they didn't. So there was just this giant question mark regarding Sean Miller's future. And then, I mean, there were some other things, but Arizona men's basketball and Arizona football were in a weird state. Those two money makers for the university athletic department. So the fact that those two programs were really in shambles and really had murky futures, it just left us here in Tucson with such a weird feeling. But ever since Jed Fish has taken over the football program, ever since Tommy Lloyd has stepped in as the Arizona men's basketball coach, there's just been a different culture within the U of A athletic department, and it's been a very refreshing one at that.
Yeah, very, very refreshing. Okay, yeah, Justin, I think we got you a little bit better there. You were breaking up there for a little bit, but I think we got you now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. What would you say right now is kind of the view, when you're taking calls, obviously you're on from 3 to 6. What would you say is kind of the viewpoint of the listenership that you and Ali are getting? Is it, going into next year, we expect to start winning a ton of games, or is it something to the effect of, you know what, we're going to take our time, let's pump the brakes? What is the view of Tucson that you see right now?
Well, for football, it's wait and see, because, yeah, it's great that Jed Fish was able to bring in these great recruits, but it's not like basketball where these guys can step in and really make an immediate impact. It's going to take a couple of years for these adjusted to the top game, to get adjusted to the Jed Fish system and what these other coaches are asking of them. So a lot of Arizona fans, they are happy that the culture is just different. And they feel more connected with a guy like Jedd Fisch because, sure, he's an outsider, but he's embraced Tucson with open arms and has really immersed himself in the old Pueblo. So people love Jedd Fisch because he actually gives a crap. He actually loves being a part of this community, and he's dedicated to really turning this football program around. And he's different because he's not just a rehire, getting some guy from Michigan, from Texas A&M. This is his first head coaching gig, and if he ever wants to be considered for another head coaching gig, he's really got to do a solid job here. And in order to do a solid job here, you got to work around the clock 24 hours a day. You really have to grind and hustle. And Jedd Fisch from day one, he's not only talk to talk, but he's really walk to walk. And people can see that. Arizona's not winning any football games, but people are seeing the hustle, the effort, and they can admire that, and they can get behind a product like that, and then eventually the wins are going to come later. So Arizona fans, they love Jedd Fisch. They're a little concerned that Arizona went 1-11 this year, and let's face it, Jedd Fisch had some very questionable games with play calling,
right?
But people are really on board with the staff and what they're going to bring.
All right, something that everybody should be on board in is the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. Great deal going on right now. You can bet $1, and again, this is for new customers only, $1 on an NFL game, and if the team you bet on scores, you get $100 in free plays. So you could actually, let's just say that you're a San Diego Chargers fan, and you've got one of the most talented rosters in the league, and you know what, you're kind of hit or miss. You don't really know if they're going to win or not. But at the same time, though, you say they're going to score some points because guess what? We got Justin Herbert back there. Do what Justin Spears would do. Hop onto the DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. And as always, eligibility restrictions do apply. New customers only, 18 and up. If you got a gambling problem, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. They'll get you all taken care of. Again, DraftKings Sportsbook app, code word PHNX. That's where everything is, and that's where you can get some really good deals, and it's incredibly easy to navigate as well. I can do it, and if I can do it, then pretty much anybody else can do it. All right, Justin, I thought you hit the nail on the head when it comes to optimism here because I'm working on an article for our, year in review where we were at this time last year as opposed to, right now. And I thought Dave Hickey, and he was telling me this off record, but I don't think that he would mind me saying this. I thought Dave made a really good point. He said, when it comes to Arizona football, the most important thing is you need to have a coach that wants to be here, that wants to embrace the grind of coaching in Tucson. Justin, you played a little bit of high school football. I know you don't like to brag about it, but you played for one of the better coaches in the city, Mr. Niemer Hassey. You know that there is talent in this city, but you're not going to be able to live off of this talent. So you have to be able to go into Texas, as you asked Rich Rod a few years ago, and we still joke about that every time. But the one thing that you got to say about Fisch, he put together a staff, and he put together a hustle, and he's embracing that grind all the way around, and that's a big part of this.
Yeah, it is. And unfortunately, we haven't seen in years past with the coaching staff making the state of Arizona a priority when it comes to recruiting. And you look at Arizona's 2022 recruiting class, they have commits from players who are coming from Brophy, Chandler. They did have a Scottsdale Saguaro commit.
Right.
But he decommitted and went to Wisconsin. But the fact that they had a commit really shows something. They have a couple guys coming in from Hamilton. These are the programs that traditionally have pumped out Division I player after Division I player, and they've always gone elsewhere. So for Jedd Fisch to get some talent from those schools to come out to stay here and play for the Arizona Wildcats, I think really shows how much he's progressed on the recruiting trail. But what's so mind-blowing to me when it comes to recruiting is he went to LA and somehow convinced these really talented Servite players that no, you don't need to play for USC. You don't need to play for Oregon. You could play for the Arizona Wildcats. You could play for the U of A in Tucson, Arizona, and you can be the reason why this program is going to be contending for a Rose Bowl in the next few years. And he flipped guys from USC, UCLA. He got Tetero McMillan to flip from Oregon to Arizona. Usually under the past coaching regimes, what we've always seen is Oregon coming in or USC or all these other big schools, and they're poaching the players from the Arizona Wildcats, where Jedd Fisch and his staff, they're doing the exact opposite. And honestly, it's refreshing. And I love how aggressive Jedd Fisch and his staff are on the recruiting trail, and you have to be at a place like Arizona.
We got 3 different questions from 3 wise men. I don't call them the 3 wise men, but right here they are. Nick Howard, Sean Seeley, and Scott Schlittenhardt all kind of have the same question, and I was going to go with this next there, Justin. They say, how many years does Jedd Fisch get? Most coaches get 3 to 4. Sometimes you pull the plug on 3 after a Kevin Sumlin where you just know that it's not going in the right direction. The one thing I'll say is this, Justin, then I'll give you the floor. I don't really expect – I just want to see them improve next year. I don't go into the year next year saying I want 4 wins or I want 3. I want to see you play as many young kids as possible and then just have them grow throughout. By year 3, I'd like to see you start making that improvement into the win column. Am I off, or what are you thinking?
No, and Arizona fans for this upcoming season, once again, should have their expectations low.
Yes.
But you also look at that 2022 schedule, and you think, man, they could honestly get off to a great start. Like, I look at the non-conference schedule, and I think, they can probably go through that 2-1. I know Mississippi State's going to be tough. North Dakota State, the top FCS team, that's going to be tough. San Diego State on the road, that's going to be brutal. But, these are also winnable games for Arizona. I could honestly see Arizona starting off 4-1. I could also see them having the most awful start ever, and we're back to talking about, man, this football team is just so terrible. But I think next year, if you're an Arizona fan that's going to be real about the number of wins that they can get in this upcoming year, I think you have to be thinking about maybe 4 to 5 wins. And if Jedd Fisch has 5 wins entering the last game of the season, the Territorial Cup game, then to me, I think that's a job well done, a great job of improving from year 1 to year 2. But, man, even if Jedd Fisch doesn't make a bowl game, what Arizona really has to do to have a successful season in 2022 is beat the Sun Devils. And ASU, they are so fragile right now. Players are leaving left and right, whether it's the transfer portal, whether it's the NFL draft. And if ASU is down, this is a perfect opportunity for Jedd Fisch to strike while the iron's hot, let everyone know, hey, I'm here and I'm not messing around. You beat ASU. And like I said, even if they don't make a bowl game next year, that Territorial Cup game, that could really define its season, and it could set up for an even greater year 3 for Jedd Fisch.
I think something, too, that Arizona fans they're going to want to see in the next recruiting class, and I want to get to local recruiting here in a second with you because I know you got your finger on the pulse of, what's going on, especially at South Point. But what I think this staff needs to do, too, when you'll really know they're making that imprint, Justin, is when you're going in there and like you correctly pointed out, you got a couple kids, some quality 3-star kids. Tyler Powell comes to mind out of Phoenix. When you go into Phoenix and you get that legitimate 4-star caliber guy, the guy who is, looking at USC, Oregon, etc. That's when I know that, that you really made some inroads, because I think it was just 2 or 3 years ago that there was something like 35 Power 5 guys that came through. And I think like 1 or 2 of them signed with Arizona or something, or Arizona and Arizona State. So there's that real tendency to want to move on. And so if you can stop that, or at least start to make it a little bit of a feel in there, Justin, that's when I think you really know that you're cooking with something.
Yeah, and you have to think about Kevin Sumlin, the guys that he was getting over the last couple of years, they were committing to Arizona over North Texas and Houston Baptist and Louisiana Lafayette. And it's like, no duh that they're coming to Arizona, because Arizona is their only Power 5 offer.
Correct.
Like, you look at Arizona's 2021 recruiting class, and this might have changed ever since Jed Fish took over and he was actually able to bring on some additional recruits. But only one high school player in the 2021 recruiting class had a Power 5, another Power 5 offer, and it was Stevie Rocker, and he had an offer to Cal.
Right.
Outside of that, all the other offers, all the kids that Arizona was able to bring in, they weren't considering other Power 5 schools. Now you look at the 2022 recruiting class, I think all but maybe one or two all have other Power 5 offers. Mm-hmm. That's the Jed Fish difference.
Now, let me ask you,
they're bringing in great talent, and eventually, years down the road, you're going to see those great high school kids. And I give credit to Rich Rodriguez. You know, we always joke around about the OKG and how it's like saying our kind of guy is pretty much saying, hey, you know, this is a 2-star guy. He's not highly rated, but we're going to bring him on anyways. Rich Rodriguez, one thing I always appreciate about him when his recruiting philosophy is he said, you want to find a great college football player, you go out and find a great high school football player. Mm-hmm. All these guys that they're bringing in are great high school football players. And like I said, it's not going to happen this upcoming season, but 2-3 years down the road, Arizona is going to be right back to where it once was.
All right. Did you not get necessarily what you want for the holiday season? Don't worry. The PHNX Locker has you covered right here. And they got all kinds of great merchandise on there. You got shirts. You got some of the coolest emblems that you can get. Get this stuff now while you can. It's popping up all over Phoenix already. You got some billboards being thrown up there that I saw yesterday. We got some other stuff coming on. I saw that. Justin saw that. That was a good look right there. So just head to the PHNX.com locker today and pick up a sticker for just $5 or grab any T-shirt for just $29.99. This is quality stuff they're pumping out right here. Get on that while you can. All right, Justin, you're a modest man. You're a humble man, but you know what? I'm going to brag. This man right here to my left or right, depending on which way you're looking at this, actually changed Arizona football recruiting, about 5 or 6 years ago with a mere question. You and I were talking about this before. Fill the people in a little bit because that kind of goes into my next point about where I wanted to go with you.
So this was in 2016.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing a stat when Arizona was playing against, I think it was USC or might have been Stanford. And the average offensive lineman for the opposing team was like 6'5", 300 pounds, 300 plus pounds. The average defensive lineman for Arizona was 6'1", 247. Like that was the average weight across Arizona's defensive line. And so I'm like, that's not a recipe for success, even in the speedy, athletic Pac-12 conference. It just doesn't work. You need some size up front. So, I mean, they make some big old linemen in Texas. Arizona, I looked at the roster. They only had 2 players from the state of Texas. One of them was a walk-on. And so I asked Rich Rodriguez, one of the things that, and it wasn't this exact saying, but I pretty much straight up asked him, have you thought about getting back into Texas? Because Mike Stoops in the past brought in a lot of players from the state of Texas, and they were great players. Earl Mitchell is the one that comes to mind. And when I asked him about, reestablishing that Texas pipeline, Rich Rodriguez, kind of side-eyed me and was like, why? Because everything's bigger in Texas? I guess that's what they say. Everything's bigger in Texas. I don't know. And then fast forward to a year later, Arizona hires Theron H., a wide receivers coach from Texas. And next thing you know, we're hearing from the coaches about how important recruiting the state of Texas is. So my question gets laughed at, gets kind of pushed to the side, and then a year later, Arizona is really emphasizing the state of Texas.
Justin, your question wasn't pushed to the side. It was the impetus needed for change right there, my friend. And you know what? You asked the question that so few wanted to ask. That's why you need to tune in and Justin and Ali from 3 to 6 on 1490 ESPN Tucson. All right, couple questions. Oh, yeah, Nick Howard giving you your props as you deserve. Damn good question, Justin. That's why we got him on. Sean Seeley. That's awesome, Justin. But yes. All right, Justin. So let's switch over to U of A basketball a little bit. So we're both happy with the direction of the football program vis-a-vis a year ago, just based off the kind of talent and at least some of the vision that Jed Fish is bringing in. Now let's talk a little bit about the other side. Let's talk about basketball. When Tommy Lloyd was hired, it was a little bit of the same thought process for me that I think it was for you when it came to Jed Fish, where, like you look at it, it's like the longtime Gonzaga coach, and you're thinking Arizona is a top 15 national program. Can't you get somebody a little more proven? Man, I'll tell you one thing, Justin. This guy was the right man at the right time with the right roster involved. Now, you got to give Sean Miller some kudos for sure, because he left him a very good roster. But Tommy Lloyd has been able to take advantage of this roster and take it to plateaus that I don't think that many other coaches in the country would have been able to.
Tommy Lloyd, Steve Kerr, Sean Miller.
Mm-hmm.
So Sean Miller in this case is Mark Jackson, and Steve Kerr is Tommy Lloyd. Tommy Lloyd.
Great comparison.
Tommy Lloyd took over his predecessor's roster, and it's built perfectly to his system and how he wants to run things at Arizona. And it's perfect because you add in Christian Coloco, who's probably the most improved player on Arizona's roster. Azuolas Tubelis, probably going to be an NBA draft pick. Ben Mathurin, who's shown time and time again this season that he is a bona fide NBA draft pick. He might even be a surefire top 5 pick when it's all said and done.
Dude, he's definitely heading in that direction.
Yeah. And all this international flavor and guys that are just absolutely likable. Like, there isn't that one guy on Arizona's team where you can, honestly say, man, that guy's annoying as hell. And there have been some dudes in the past, like the one that comes to mind is Chris Rogers. Like, Chris Rogers was the ultimate, like, man, why is this guy on our team? He is so damn annoying. I can't stand him. And he plays for the Arizona Wildcats. But everybody on this team is likable. They've all meshed well together with Tommy Lloyd and what he's asking of them. And, I mean, it's crazy to think that, we're here talking about Arizona being the top scoring offense, being the top scoring team in college basketball, and they're also one of the top defensive teams. So they get it done on both ends of the court, but it's just so fun to watch because they're so fast and efficient. And all these guys don't have an ego. Like, one night it could be Christian Coloco getting a double-double. Another night it's Ben Mathurin quietly dropping 30 points on the road. It is awesome. And I love it so much. And I can't wait to see how this team is when they start to get into the bulk of Pac-12 play. Disappointed because we should be talking about Arizona playing UCLA in Pauley Pavilion for the highly anticipated game. But unfortunately, we don't get that. But at the end of the day, I'm sold on Tommy Lloyd. And the fact that he doesn't wear suits, he's kicking ass while wearing a pullover and a quarter zip jacket, I'm all in.
All right, here's the quarter zip is slick too. A lot of people notice the non-suit. The quarter zip is slick. One thing I want to get to kind of just the feeling around the program in a second. But one thing though that obviously you should know about is the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Code word PHNX. As we talked about, new customers only. You throw down $1 on an NFL game, and if the team you bet on scores, you get $100 in free plays. It's that simple. Give you an idea. Justin, who you guys playing this week?
Who, the Chargers? They're playing the Broncos.
The Broncos. All right. Well, if I were going to bet on that game on which team is going to score, I would bet on the Chargers as opposed to the Broncos because Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater, not Justin Herbert. I'll just leave it like that. You know what? Hop on there. Do what Justin Spears would do. Make that part of your life. Throw down the $1. New customers only get that $100 in free plays. All right, Justin. The thing that I find very refreshing too is just the openness now, to a certain extent, around the athletic programs. It's different than at least it was 18 months ago. And I'll give you an idea. The U of A basketball, the U of A football program, they've been absolutely fantastic to me in a way that, I've essentially, been able to request, which players I'd like to get, and they've essentially been able to give them to me. In years past, that isn't necessarily happening, and it's not because of some of the people behind the scenes, because they all do a great job. But there's this new philosophy that we've got a pretty good, we've got good kids, we got good players to be able to push out in this program. Let's let people see them, and it feels less of a Fort Knox type situation where you're like banging, trying to look in the window to see what's going on there.
Yeah, I love it. Transparency is great. The communication has been awesome. And one thing that always bugged me about the Sean Miller era was how much they kept DeAndre Ayton from the media during the regular season. We talked to DeAndre Ayton twice, maybe 3 times during the regular season, and then we only got to talk to him, or we really started to talk to him during Pac-12 tournament when we were able to go into these open locker room situations. So in that scenario, you can't hide DeAndre Ayton from us, so we're going to go and talk to this guy. He was the most charismatic, funniest guy you could ever talk to. And during the Pac-12 tournament, I look forward to going to every single availability because I want to know what DeAndre Ayton was going to say. I mean, he was so funny and just awesome to listen to. And it was just mind-boggling to me how charming he was. I'm like, you guys kept this guy from talking to us all season long? This guy would have been the biggest PR move for you because he's so likable and funny that you could just throw him out there and whatever he says, people are just going to eat it up. And so that part was disappointing. But we get to request anybody that we want. We used to be able to attend practice and actually watch Tommy Lloyd and how he operates. I never once attended a Sean Miller practice at the University of Arizona.
And not only that, it's funny you mentioned that because when I got the invite and you and I, the cool kids, stuck next to each other during that, and that meant that Justin Spears and Mike Luke stuck next to each other right there. But when I got that in the email, I was looking at myself like, wait a second here. Is this for like a mandatory media day? Or like what am I missing here? And then we got to go in there and we got to watch them. No, again, it's not like they're, throwing out, state secrets or anything at this practice, but you got to get a vibe. You got to get a tenor of how everything was going. And I think that to me was that was a sign of a different era. One thing too that I really like, and Justin, again, we'll appreciate you giving us about a half hour of your time. We'll hop off here in just a second. But Justin, one thing though that when I look at and people ask me about the trajectory of the program and whatnot, all the way around from basketball to football, which we've covered, there's a ton of optimism, and in the areas too where there's new coaches, it's new dynamic blood. Obviously, nobody wants to see Mike Candrea go. Mike Candrea he's the GOAT. The term GOAT's thrown around way too often. This dude is the GOAT. He's that dude. And but when you got Caitlin Lowe coming in here, who's signed off by Mike Candrea, that's an exciting thing to follow. You got Chip Hale, same situation, only a little bit different here with his U of A ties. Everything right here is kind of fallen into place there, where it kind of feels like a little bit of a community type environment again.
It feels weird that Dave Rubio is now the OG of Arizona athletics.
Right.
Adia Barnes is a veteran in the Arizona athletic department. New coaches. I mean, you can ask anybody who's covered Arizona. Dave Rubio, he will be the first one to tell you, I've never seen this much turnover in Arizona athletics. Caitlin Lowe being here, she's a Mike Candrea product. She's also going to have Mike Candrea around as an advisor. So Mike Candrea isn't completely leaving Arizona softball. He's just going to be, like a source of wisdom, maybe, help out some players who signed up to play for Mike Candrea. And he's just going to be just a resource to help build the Arizona softball program and keep it as a national contender. And Chip Hale, he is a guy who was an underdog coming out of high school and came to the University of Arizona and scrapped and clawed his way for everything, and then eventually became one of the greatest players in program history. So you have two Wildcats taking over the spring sports. You have Bernard Lagat, who's taking over the cross-country team. That's an Olympic medalist right there, coaching one of your programs. Right. And then, I mean, there's just a lot of turnover, but a lot of hope. And the culture, everything is just completely different within the University of Arizona athletic department, and it's something that Tucsonans and Arizona fans should be proud of. And I think, like I said, with the football team, a couple years down the road, you're going to see every single program firing on all cylinders, and Arizona is going to be that college that's on the map in every sport.
This is the time to get on to Go PHNX. Get your membership right now. We've got a lot of fresh breaking stories. We got live streams and podcasts with the best guys, the most connected guys. Heck, I almost said Justin Esports. Justin Spears, multimedia journalist extraordinaire. You get the best guests. And if you become a PHNX member right now, you can basically get everything you need. Head to PHNX.com and become a member, and you'll either get a free t-shirt from the PHNX locker or your first month for just 50 cents. It's that easy. 50 cents turned into a millionaire. You'll feel like a millionaire after putting down that 50 cents. It's that simple. I actually made that up off the top of my head right there. So before we let you go, Justin, I wanted to give you a special shout out on something that I didn't want to – I was never going to mention until you mentioned it to me before. But, for everybody out there, that's got a little bit of a difficult time, burning a few pounds in the holiday season, my guy over there is dropping weight like no tomorrow. And it's funny. I was talking with a mutual friend of ours in the media, and I'm like, man, each time I see Justin, he's down 15 more pounds. Dude, my guy's looking svelte right now, Justin. Just if you don't mind, just telling people, how are you doing it right now? How are you keeping motivated? Because you look fantastic, homie.
I appreciate it. I think the big to my recent success is you can have as much food as you want on Saturday. Like, you can pig out on Saturday, but the other 6 days out of the week, you have to be committed to eating healthy. And I was the kind of guy who always went through a drive-through anytime I could because I didn't feel like cooking. And I'm so lazy. I'm like, I'd rather just have somebody make it for me. I can pick it up, and then I can bring it home and eat it. So I was constantly going through drive-thrus and just eating absolutely terrible food. I eliminated that. I got rid of soda. And you know what? Going for a walk every single day and finding a couple days to exercise throughout the week, it works for you. So I'm down 35 pounds. Mm-hmm. And I feel great. Yeah. And man, I'm excited to see where this weight loss journey can take me, because I blew up there, and now I must have such a big hole.
All right, my man. Again, homie, keep grinding. Proud of you, bro. Again, tune in 3 to 6, 1490 ESPN Tucson. Download Spears and Ali podcast. Justin, again, thanks for coming on, bro. Appreciate you, man.
Love you, man. Appreciate everything that you do, and have a good New Year.
All right, you too as well. For Justin Spears, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.